Air defense has been a bit of a buzz phrase ever since Russia embarked on its three-day invasion into Ukraine, and now the three-day operation has turned into a three-year slog that's slowly breaking containment and expanding into other European countries. It is a topic that's resurfaced, and how the West is actually going to defend itself is a key part of that conversation. As this is Brit history, I thought I'd look into what the UK uses, as its modernisation programme was just completed as a war broke out, along with the fact it's one of the few that's tried to address the main problem of interoperability between the Army and the Navy. So, this video is about the Common Anti-Air Missile, or CAM, which is a terrible name. It may as well have just called it Dave. As with everything else, understanding where the UK started is a good idea to understand where it's going, and for MRAD systems the UK would start back in the 1950s. Jets were testing the limit of when it came to conventional air defence. Long gone were the days where forcing the limit to both force cannons were the go-to, so we're into missiles. The first in its evolution was the Bloodhound missile. Not necessarily medium range, it could strike up to 50 miles, but it's a better place to start than many others as it opened the door to missile defence in the UK. Needing to be permanently emplaced with large radar arrays, it was great for static defence, but for an attacking force it was all but useless. So it fitted the doctrine of a crumbling empire perfectly. But after 20 years of development into missile technology, the writing was on the wall, and the UK would look for something new. It was 1961 when a program called Sightline would make SAC-closed systems viable for missile technology and by extension air defence. Sightline wouldn't really go anywhere, but 2 years later a military contract and procurement tender was placed for a SAC-close guided medium-range anti-air missile under GASR 3132. This would produce a series of offers, but the one that would succeed was the Mongoose missile, renamed to Rapier shortly after adoption. The only source as to why this took place is a book that isn't in my local library, but it was apparently because nobody knew what the plural of a mongoose is. Despite the name confusion, it would be adopted in 1971 with this frankly baffling user map. It really is emblematic of 1970s Cold War border gore. It was one of the better systems developed at the time, as it's still being operated to this day, but Rapier isn't the focus of this video, so moving on. It's the 2000. Blair's in charge and he's remodelling the Middle East on a budget. This is the part of the video where I need to accept that the Navy exists. They've been doing their own thing, starting with Sea Slug, again, terrible name, then Sea Wolf, getting better, through to Sea Viper in 2006, a stopgap solution. The government was getting angry at this two-track development, with 3 if you count it air missiles, but that comes later. So they launched a program of consolidation. CAM is a smaller part of a wider UK program called FLADS, or the Future Local Area Air Defence System, which itself is a wider part of a UK program to bolster domestic manufacturing. To break this down, CAM is just a missile. It's a program to have a common base for both ship and land-based air defence missiles, whereas FLADS is a larger integrated air defence package covering radars, launchers and other air detection and defence packages. Think of UK version of Aegis. The UK would need a baseline for this missile, and luckily they had one that they like and used in large numbers, the ASRAAM. This would be the base technology, but couldn't just be used in a short-range air defence role. If only it were that simple. It's not like 3 years later BAE Systems would find out you could turn it into a SAM system. If they did that, this would make this entire program useless. The missile itself would be developed by MBDA and Thales UK, with the development of the program broken down into multiple steps. Step 1 was creating a soft launch system with a data link package and a radar seeker. All of these would need to be small and cheap enough to make the system viable. This would take place from 2001 till 2008, so you can tell they were really taking their time with this one. Step 2 covered flight guidance, range increases, and manufacturing. There was more of a rush on the naval side of the program. The Air Force and Army were fine with Rapier and had no real need for the replacement. But the Navy really wanted to replace Sea Wolf, so more time was dedicated to the Navy's version, called Sea Scepter. And the other reason why the Navy got priority is they didn't need a new launch vehicle. CAM missiles were compatible with the Mark 41 VLS cells found on Royal Navy vessels. So from 2018 onwards it would be considered successful and implemented into the Navy. This would finish out the Royal Navy's air defence, short range handled by Phalanx Sea-Whiz rotary cannons, the CAM missile under Sea Scepter handling short to medium range intercepts, and Sea Viper, or the Aster missile, handling long-range air defence. But back to the Army and Air Force, who, shockingly, do not have boats and need a way to launch their missiles. This program would be called Land Scepter, but given that it is also a stupid name, Sky Scepter is the one the program more commonly goes by. This would take an additional 2 years from the Navy's adoption, but in 2021 the British military will have finally adopted a fully interoperable air defence system. For the basics of a Sky Sabre battery, it uses a Sabre Giraffe radar system for detection, an 8-tube erector launcher called iLauncher, which runs with the program and awful names, and a command launch vehicle with 2 auxiliary trucks for spare missiles, parts and crew. Despite it being possible, there are currently no plans for the UK to procure Aster missiles for land use. This is slightly strange, as from what I can tell, the UK does not currently operate a long-range, land-based air defence system. If I had to guess, we're about 2 years away from any announcement. There were conversations about this when the so-called Tin Dome idea was launched, but how much of this was bluster and mockery at Trump's Golden Dome is somewhat unclear. As this video has got far enough off track, I think we should get back to the evolved ASRAAM. The standard missile comes in at a mass of 99 kilograms or 218 pounds, with a length of 3.2 meters or 10 feet 6 inches. A diameter of 166 millimeters, extending out to 450 millimeters if we include the wings. And at a range of 25 kilometers or 16 miles, it nicely covers the short to medium range well. The warhead of the missile is a 10 kilogram high explosive blast fragmentation charge with a proximity fuse, and as this is an anti-air missile, that's not overly surprising. This is both the land and naval uses. If there was a difference, it would defeat the whole purpose of the program. There is an extended range version of the missile, which is about 70 kilos heavier and 1 meter longer, along with things slightly thicker, but it can punch out to 45 kilometers or 28 miles. There is also a medium range version, with a range going out to 100 kilometers, but other than range figures, little is known owing to the fact the missile is still quite new. Along with this, there is also a version made for Brazil. Modified mostly for domestic production, it is compatible with their existing naval and land-based launchers. It's cool, but it's not exactly relevant as it's unlikely to be sold to anybody else. As for the first user, it is the UK, somewhat obvious. Both the Army and Navy have now procured the systems for use. The other to do this is Poland, who have adopted both land and sea scepter systems. They filled out the long-range gap with Patriot batteries from the US, so this might be part of the reason why long-range missiles still elude the UK. There are also the Italians. They're currently in negotiations over the procurement of both land and sea scepter, and this is looking increasingly likely to be a done deal, but that would be the end of the dual adopters. As for Sea Scepter, it's seen wider interest. This might have happened because it's older, but whatever the reason, Brazil, Chile, New Zealand and Pakistan have all procured CAM missiles for their Navy's short to medium range air defence. As for the future of the programme, there are currently 2 customers who are in the process of procurement. Sweden for their Visby-class corvettes, and the Saudis have procured CAM missiles over Sea Sparrow for their MMSC frigates, but that is all for now. This would normally be the part of the video where I talk about how good they've been in combat. Easy for everything else, as by now every system the NATO uses has pretty much been deployed to Ukraine. But CAM missiles have only ever been used once. It was on the 9th of March 2024 during HMS Richmond's operations in the Red Sea, countering Houthis' attempt to blockade the Bab el-Mandeb, or Gate of Tears. By virtue of the fact that HMS Richmond isn't currently with Moscow, CAM missiles are clearly better at defending ships than their Russian alternatives. But that is currently as much as anyone can really tell.